Hi guys, I'm Brody and welcome to my channel. Now today's video I've got a Titan build for you that does it all. We've got powerful grenades, we've got ridiculously powerful melee abilities, our weapons are dealing a ton of damage, and we've got explosions going off everywhere. Take a quick look. So before we get into the build, in my last video comment section, there was a lot of people who are either new players or returning to the game who haven't got the Elemental WoW mods. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an alternative build using Charge with Light mods. It's not quite as powerful, but it's more fun to use. I'll put links for both builds down below in the comment section. And very quickly, before we get into the build, I just want to thank everyone for your support recently. To all the new subscribers, we're in triple figures now and your support means so much to me, and thank you so much. Okay, let's jump into the build. Let's break down the subclass to start off with. Going to be using Thundercrash just because it's so powerful. I love popping the one-time use super just so we can do some high damage and then get straight back to the action. But you can use Fist of Havoc if you like, it's totally up to you. For our ability, we're going to be using Thruster. Again, we're going to use this as a tool to generate more melee ability. Having said that, it works amazing with this subclass anyway, because we're so tanky, we can use this to get in and out of combat easily, and it's only a 30-second cooldown, but even lower, thanks to some mods we're using. Jump, use whatever you want, it's completely optional, it doesn't really matter. Now for our melee ability, we're using the Seismic Strike. Why this pairs so well with our exotic? It's not only is it really powerful, but it blinds enemies around us. So we're going to run in, use a Seismic Strike, do a ton of damage, hopefully kill our target, which is then going to cause an explosion. And if it doesn't kill the enemies that are around us, hopefully they'll be ready to finish, which will cause another explosion from the exotic we're using, which I'll get to in a sec. So we're going to run in, use Seismic Strike. That's going to damage and blind enemies around us. If they don't die, we'll finish them, which is going to cause another explosion. If they do die, that enemy is going to blow up anyway. And the damage from these enemies varies all depending on what rank they are. We'll look more into that when we get to the exotic chest piece. For this build, we're going to use pulse grenades. These are super powerful, and thanks to an aspect we're going to use in a second, they're going to give us ability regen, which is going to give us more uptime, take advantage of our melee. So let's take a look at our first aspect and why this synergizes perfectly with our chest piece. So we're going to be using Knockout. Specifically, the part that says critically wounding a target or breaking their shield infuses your melee attack with arc energy and increases your melee range and damage for a short time. So this is brilliant because while we've got this arc energy in our melee attack, this counts as a powered melee attack. So if we've used our Seismic Strike and then we use this melee infused attack and kill a target with that, that's going to cause an explosion, which synergizes perfectly with our chest piece. Obviously, defeating targets with melee attack starts health regeneration, makes you amplified, which is going to help us just run around and cause even more havoc. But the way Knockout synergizes with this chest piece is fantastic. We're getting arc-infused melee attacks all the time, which is causing our targets to explode. Our second aspect is what's going to make our grenade really powerful. The pulse grenade is powerful already, but with this, which is going to cause Ionic Traces, which is free ability regen, which is automatically going to seek to us. So we just let this do its damage, run its course, and reap the benefits. So the first fragment we're using is Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. This is brilliant because we're going to be surrounded all the time. Any damage resistant perk here is very welcome. We've got a plus 10 in strength, but using our next fragment is going to reduce that anyway, so don't get too excited. Spark of Discharge. Arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an Ionic Trace. Again, more ability regen just by shooting people with our arc weapons, which we'll get to later. Spark of Shock, your arc grenades jolt targets. Gives us a slight decrease in discipline, but our ability is going to be recharging quickly anyway, so that doesn't really matter. We're using this purely to get our targets jolted. And finally, we're using Spark of Amplitude. Rapidly defeating targets while you are amplified creates an Orb of Power. Orbs of Power are crucial for this build to help get our super up, help regen our health, plus help us with some other cooldowns too. I tested out Spark of Feedback quite a lot. Taking melee damage briefly increases your outgoing melee damage. Sounds amazing, but the problem with this is, whilst we're running in with Seismic Strike, not only are we knocking enemies back, but we're blinding them too, so anything around us won't actually have chance to hit us to get the damage buff. So I found this quite difficult to proc, therefore I'm leaving out of the fragments, but on paper it sounds amazing. It just didn't work out too well in this build. First up, let's take a look at the exotic chest piece. We're using the Severance Enclosure. Powered melee final blows unleash a damaging explosion. Finishers and final blows against more powerful targets increase the radius and damage of these explosions. Now, like I said earlier, this synergizes perfectly with knockout, because we've only got to break someone's shield or get them critically wounded to get the infused lightning melee, which counts as a powerful melee. So we can just keep punching things, keep making explosions, and the bigger the enemy, the bigger the explosion. And the finisher side of things is amazing for taking out champions, because the radius and the damage from this explosion will wipe out so many things around it. And if it doesn't quite kill them, they'll be finishable too. So it kind of starts off a chain reaction. So let's have a look how we can optimize this. First of all, we're going to be using Well of Irons. Picking up an Arc Elemental Wow causes your next melee to deal increased damage. Now this is a 30% increased damage to an already powerful melee. So the idea is, run in with your Seismic Strike, everything's going to be blinded around you. You're going to cause a lot of damage to your target, but Seismic Strike also does an area of effect damage. Use your finisher to finish off anything in front of you that's not dead, and then pick up the wows. Now we're getting elemental wows by doing finishers. We're using Overcharge Wowmaker. Defeating a combatant with a finisher spawns 2 Arc Elemental Wows. So you can already see the chain that's going on here. Running in, do your melee, finish off the enemies in front of you, get the Elemental Wows. Now 9 times out of 10, when you finish an enemy, these Elemental Wows are going to spawn exactly where you're standing. So you haven't even got to pick them up, they will naturally just fall onto you. So that's a huge bonus. By this point, you've already had a lot of ability regen because of this. Next, we've got Explosive Wowmaker. The damage that comes from this chest piece is classed as explosive damage, just like our grenades and just like the rocket launcher we'll be using. So when we do a melee attack that's infused with lightning, or our powered melee attack, this is classed as an explosion. So when anything dies from this explosion, we're going to be getting a Solar Elemental Wow. That Solar Elemental Wow is then going to make us super tanky because Well of Life. Picking up a Solar Elemental Wow grants increased regeneration for a short time. This allows us just to stay there in the thick of things, whether we're punching, whether we're using our weapons, we're just doing damage, picking up wows, causing explosions, rinse and repeat. And of course, it's a melee build, so we're using Melee Wowmaker. Powered melee combatant final blow spawns elemental wows matching your subclass energy type. Now, I said it earlier, the lightning infused knockout melee is classed as a powered melee. So pretty much every punch or every other punch we're doing is classed as a powered melee. We're getting elemental wows. The explosions from Severance Enclosure are blowing anything up around us, which is causing elemental wows. It's a chain reaction of elemental wows. Now, for easier content, you could swap out Well of Life for something like Font of Might, which is going to give your arc weapons 25% weapon damage for 10 seconds. I've been running loads of solo last sectors and loads of nightfalls, and Well of Life is ideal for that, for survivability and really giving us that tanky titan feeling. Let's take a quick look at the other armor mods before we get onto the weapons. Harmonic Siphons on our helmet, which is going to help us create orbs of power. Now we want orbs of power to recharge our super and give us ability regen for other mods we'll get to in a sec. And don't forget, we're also making orbs of power from Spark of Amplitude. So we're going to be amplified, rapidly defeating targets, and we're going to get orbs of power from that. You'll see when these explosions go off, rains orbs of power. Second helmet mod, we're using Hands On. Gain bonus super energy on melee kills. Self-explanatory, we're doing melee kills all the time, so our super's going to go up a tiny bit for every kill we get. Momentum Transfer. Causing damage with a grenade reduces your melee cooldown. Again, this is a melee focused build. We're using our grenade and our thrusters as a tool to get our melee energy back. Concussive Dampener. Reducing incoming area of effect damage from combatants. Innovation. This is why we need some more orbs of power. Reduce grenade cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. So we've got our super powerful grenades, and in turn, using our grenades are going to recharge our melee ability. And then we've got Recuperation. Replenishes health each time you pick up an orb of power. This helps us stay alive longer, be tankier, do more damage. Double Outreach on our mark. Reduces melee cooldown when using your class ability. Again, it's a tool we're going to use to get our melee energy back. Let's get it up as quick as possible and reduce that cooldown. For our weapons, we're using Risk Runner. When taking arc damage, this weapon becomes more powerful and resists incoming arc damage. Kills extend the time in this overcharged state. And the Superconductor on here. When Arc Conductor is active, shots fired have the chance to become Chain Lightning and return ammo. This weapon was made for this subclass and is a great primary weapon choice for this build. Now, a shotgun is needed here to 1-2 punch champions. You're going to need this perk on a shotgun to kill a champion in one hit. You have to run with Seismic Strike, do a slide, shoot the enemy with the shotgun, and then finish them off with Seismic Strike. If you hit all of your pellets and then follow up with a punch, an unstoppable and barrier champion, no problem. If you can get full choke on the shotgun as well, it's going to help because it tightens up the barrel, reduces projectile spread when aiming down the sights at the cost of precision damage. Now, the rocket launcher is where it gets really interesting. If you've got one, use a rocket launcher with explosive light. Picking up an orb of power increases the next projectile blast radius and damage. So the blast radius is maxed out to 100 and the damage is an extra 25%. But one of the main reasons I'm using this is because when you've got explosive light, it doesn't have to be being used, it just needs to be equipped. It means you can still pick up orbs of power when your super's fully charged. And if you're not picking up the orbs of power, you're not getting the buffs from things like innovation or recuperation. Just having this rocket launcher equipped on our back is giving us such good survivability and grenade cooldown. Now let's take a quick look at the Charge of Light build for the players who don't have the elemental wows. We're going to be using reactive pulse on your helmet. While charged with light, when you take damage while surrounded by combatants, you emit a burst of damaging arc energy, consuming 1 stack of charge with light. This is great because it's doing passive damage without you even thinking about it. It's not a ton of damage, but it's damage. Not only that, it knocks enemies back a bit as well. So using this is mega fun because if you're sliding towards an enemy, they're going to damage you, which in turn is going to damage them, knock them back. You're going to use your Seismic Strike, do a lot of damage to that enemy and blind the enemies around it, and then your explosion from Severance Enclosure is going to go off. So you've got 3 nice explosions going off there without hardly doing anything. But even better with this is the secondary perk. Gain a powerful overshield while performing your finisher, and this overshield is ridiculously powerful. You basically become invincible for a second or two. So running in and doing those finishers is not going to be a problem at all. And then when you've done the finisher, just look for your next target and run straight to them. Hopefully they'll be finishable, you'll get another overshield and rinse and repeat. On our arms, we're going to be using Swift Charge. Become charged with light by rapidly defeating combatants with pulse rifles, sidearms or submachine guns. Now Risk Runner is still our primary weapon here, and with the chain lightning effect, enemies are going down left, right, centre. We're going to be charged with light. We've always got reactive pulse ready to go, and becoming charged with light ready for another mod we'll use in a sec. Charged up is going to allow us to carry 1 more stack of charge with light. This means we can now have 3 stacks of charge with light and always know we've got our perks ready to proc from this anytime. Taking charge is our second way of becoming charged with light here. There's going to be orbs of power all over the floor, so running over these, picking them up are going to help us get charged with light again. And void legs are brilliant here as well because we've got better already. Your health begins to regenerate immediately after picking up an orb of power. This is a great replacement for Well of Life, which we're using with the other class. These orbs of power are everywhere and your health replenishes instantly. Not just a little bit, all of it. That paired with the health regeneration from knockout, you are going to be so tanky. You can just carry on doing damage and getting in the thick of it. Insulation reduces class ability cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. Self-explanatory. We want our thrusters up again to reduce our melee cooldown. Now heavy-handed. This is our second reason why we want to be charged with light, and this is such an amazing perk. I sometimes use this in conjunction with Well of Life builds. While charged with light, regain half of your melee energy when you use the charge melee. We've also got a secondary perk on here. While surrounded by multiple combatants, defeating a combatant with a fusion rifle, shotgun, sidearm or submachine gun adds ammo to that weapon from your reserves. Our main weapon here is Risk Runner, so that synergizes perfectly with that. It's the same kind of playstyle. Find your target, Seismic Strike them. If they're not dead, use a finisher to finish them off. If they do die, they're going to cause an explosion around you. If they don't die, the finisher will cause an explosion around you, which should wipe everything out. If they will be or should be finishable, do another finisher, cause another explosion, carry on with your day. Both builds are great fun and easy to use. And this build, I believe, really brings out what makes a Titan shine. Consistent damage, lots of explosions, hard hitting, close quarters, mega fun build. I hope you enjoy it. I love hearing your feedback in the comments. If you think something could be improved or I've done something wrong you don't agree with, let me know. I can update the build in the dim links and anybody will be credited if they do so. Thanks again for your support, guys. I really love making these videos and I can't wait to do some more in the future. If you've liked my content, please consider hitting the like button and the subscribe button, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon. Take care all. Goodbye.